Welcome to Authentic Influence Live. It's Anthony Chansamove from Simple Creative Marketing. And in this episode, we are going to go into the world of SEO and contents and show you how to do keyword research. Now, I've invited one of our partners and a great friend back onto the show because when it comes to understanding SEO, keywords, all these things, how to get traffic online and how to sort of incorporate that into content. My man, Gert Mellak from SEOleverage.com is the expert to talk to. All right. So welcome back to the show, Gert.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me.
Now it's getting late over there in Spain, so we'll work our way through this, and then we'll get you off the bed as soon as possible. And I appreciate you having, appreciate you joining me. Yeah, these time zone differences are a bit of a challenge sometimes. Okay, so let's talk about keyword research before we get into you jumping into Ahrefs and working through a process and a demo of how you use it. I'd like just to, on a high level, maybe talk to you about your philosophy or approach to keyword research. And if someone's watching this going, okay, they have a product to sell or a service to sell, because a lot of our audience is B2B, as you know, and they're thinking, okay, well, how do I do that? I want to increase the traffic coming to my website. But at the end of the day, what I want is I want more bookings, right? I want more sales of a product if they're SaaS, right? And so what's your just a broad philosophy? I know you've got the Erica framework, and we will link to the book in the show notes, and everyone, you should go read that and understand more on how SEO Leverage and how Gert works and his team work. But the first thing that comes to my mind is this question around, is it even possible in 2021 to go after high volume, low competition keywords? Is that possible now? Is it too late? Right? Is it? What's your sort of immediate response to that question?
Immediate response: you probably don't want to go after high volume keywords in the first place. In many cases, okay. So some SEOs might now bash me with some hammer or whatever. We really want leads, right? And I think what sets us apart in SEO is that our entire SEO process is really leads or outcome based. And what this means is that if I want to get a certain type of traffic, I don't want only traffic on my website. Nobody's going to be happy with thousands and thousands of visitors that don't do anything on a website. You want to get the right visitors, and the right visitors are going to identify themselves because they perform certain searches on Google that are where they just indicate that they are about to take action. I'm going to give you an example. I do want to get a new car. I did want to get a new car 2 years ago already, and I have been searching for car options for 2 years, 3 years probably. And I might be getting a new car either next year or the year afterwards because my car is still okay and I don't need a new one. But based on how I search, I'm going to either raise my hand as being ready to take action, or I'm going to raise my hand as someone who is just browsing around and likes checking out some cars without any intention to take action. And what if we make this a little bit more specific? We can say if I'm interested in an SUV, right? If I type in SUV, there is no buyer's intent. There is no specific intent that shows that I'm going to take action. But if I search for SUV Madrid, for example, apparently, and I'm living in Madrid, so apparently I'm interested in learning more about what kind of SUVs do we have here, what kind of car dealerships sell SUVs in Madrid. I might be interested then in a second hand rather than a new one, probably, if I have a location in there. So I'm already showing with my search, which has a much lower search volume than SUV, that I'm ready to take action. So in many, many cases, we're going to see the high search volume terms, really high search volume, apart from them having probably a lot of competition because all the car brands are trying to rank for those. they are not going to lead to leads or sales anytime soon. They are nice to have. Obviously, every car dealership wants to rank if someone types in SUV, but very often it doesn't even make sense because they're not going to get the results out of it. So you really want to essentially work your way backwards and say, okay, what is it as I sell? How are people going to act when they are ready to really take action? And what are they going to search before that moment? And you're going to come up with a lot of searches, with a lot of angles, with a lot of questions you can answer on your blog, on your website, that are not going to have huge amounts of volume, but at least they bring the right people in. We have clients that get 5,000 leads a month, but they have to prune actively because they're just getting so many leads because they're not exactly able to differentiate. They have those high search volume rankings, but then they have to be pruning all the time and throw away hundreds and even thousands sometimes of leads every month because they're just not the right people. They're not the right people that click on an email link you send them. They're not the right people that answer to a question you send them by email. They're not the right people to come back and search for more or take the next step, even if it's free or cheap or whatever. You just have a different quality. So yes, there are some high search volume keywords with low competition. The question is just really if it makes sense for your business to go after them.
That's a really good point. And what comes to my mind is the difference between, I guess, if you're trying to build a brand, right? So you want to really just build volume because you want that brand reputation, and you want to be able to attract maybe different type of opportunities. So it's not specifically just for the sale. Okay, so if you were, I'm thinking of like an e-commerce brand. Obviously, they want sales as well, but they want to be, in the market saying, "Hey, we have 100,000 visits to our site that can lead to media." If that's what they want, right? It just depends on your goals. And then the other thought that comes to mind is tangential, what we call parallel content, which is content that doesn't really speak to your buyer, but it speaks to maybe other, it speaks to media, speaks to other influencers in your industry. And that's the kind of stuff that you want them to be sharing to really, build those backlinks from reputable organizations, from Forbes and Inc. and these sort of things. And that's more of a credibility play versus this is what we want. At the end of the day, we want to sell something and build a business that way. So it really comes back to what's the broader marketing strategy, and then, how does it tie to your business goals?
Absolutely. And it speaks to a point that I always raise with my clients. That is that every piece of content we create needs to be created with an intent in mind. Okay, on the one hand, we need to know what's the purpose of this article. Why do we spend time on creating this article? And if it is to attract influencers, media, etc., that's fine. At least we know why we're doing it. And it needs to, if we want to have it SEO relevant, if we want to see it rank on Google and Google drive traffic to this piece of content, we need to make sure that it responds to a search intent. A search intent is like the very reason why somebody typed in a search query into Google's box. They want to accomplish something. Google talks about the task accomplishment. If you go to Google, you have a task in mind, be it to know the height of the Eiffel Tower, or be it your local vet's phone number and opening hours, or be it to find the best SUV option you can afford. All good, all are search intents. You want to make sure that your piece of content is going to respond to a specific search intent and then serve really a purpose here.
That's really, really good. So let's jump into Ahrefs and work through a couple of examples. So I've got a community member here who's building a SaaS product. And I think I mentioned this to you in the email. They're really building a product that's competing with Loom, which has become the category leader for asynchronous communication, asynchronous meetings, and really with the pandemic and everyone starting to work from home or work remotely, asynchronous messaging has become more of a popular search phrase, or at least it's more people understand what that means. It's still not mainstream, but certainly. So let's use that as the first example, and then we can look at other examples. I've got a couple more for you as well. So
makes sense. Yeah. I think in this here, let me just share my screen.
Sure.
We can just share the entire screen here. Okay, so can you see my screen okay?
Bringing it in right now. Here we go. Yes. I think we just need to zoom into it because it's very small.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we have this Ahrefs tool. Everybody who wants to map out the content for a year or so definitely, I think, should get at least a month of subscription to make sure you can get some data here. Ahrefs, by the way, has a lot of information in their academy and on their blog. They just launched a completely new course about how to use this tool. So there's a lot of information from Ahrefs, quality information you can definitely use. And I know my team uses definitely, especially when they start out with us. One of the tools you're going to use is the Keywords Explorer. And the Keywords Explorer is just giving you a lot of information you can then work with. So for example, if this is screen recording, for example, we just need to feed it. We call this very often seed keywords. Okay, so we feed it with a few keywords to tell the tool where we want to go, right? So if you think about it, I'm probably got ahead of myself here. If you think about it, someone who would be interested in a solution like Loom or an alternative product has a specific problem. So they definitely want to record their screen. They want to probably share the recording, and they probably want to maybe edit this or be able to hit pause, which Loom has, others don't, for example, or things like those. So we need to think backwards and say, okay, how is someone going to search when they search for a tool where Loom could be one of the possible options? And the first thing that comes to my mind, for example, is screen recording.
Absolutely. That's a good one.
So yeah, if I hit enter, I can add multiple here. If I hit enter, I'm going to get a lot of information. It's easy to get lost, but we can just go through this really step by step. Ahrefs is going to assess how difficult it's going to be to rank for a certain keyword, right? Just as off the bat, they're going to pretty much tell us don't go specifically for a ranking for screen recording. It's going to be really, really hard. Why is it going to be hard? Because they estimate that we need 247 websites recommending our services with a link in order to rank on page 1 for this keyword. What does this mean? It means we need 250 websites endorsing us, which for a new business is hard to do, just to rank for this keyword, which again is very broad, and we might get a little bit more specific with less volume, but maybe have a higher conversion rate than into leads. So I can then go to the next box. I see what is the search volume, how has this changed. And here it's interesting, for example, screen recording was really big, obviously, when COVID started.
Yeah.
You can see there was a huge uplift, and then it flattened out a little bit. Also would be interesting to compare the statistics with the stock prices of Zoom and the value the Loom brand had at a certain moment in time, because it's probably correlating with this graphics as well.
That's
So you
interesting.
get an idea whether this is this going up, is this going down, is this now it's pretty much flat. It has flattened out a little bit, the screen recording theme, but it's just one thing. We can also see where the most volume is. So if I want to sell in the UK for whatever reason, I can see there is much bigger volume in the United States, for example, for screen recording.
Right.
I might also want to adjust this a little bit, or sometimes when doing some research, I might see, okay, this is only really used, this term is used like this in the UK, but not so much in the United States. So for me as a non-native speaker, this is definitely valuable information as well. And then you can just also scroll down, and then it gets really, really interesting, because you're going to get different angles around this topic. You obviously have the main match, but then you have specific angles as well. So how can I add screen recording on an iPhone, for example? It's a very specific one that is very different to the screen recording itself. For screen recording, I only had in mind the screen recording on the computer. But obviously we here, for example, we use screen recording on the phone as well to check the mobile version of a website, for example, and give our clients advice on conversion optimization, user experience, etc. We record also on the iPhone. So this is an angle where we see, okay, now we have 8,000 in search volume, not 67 anymore, but we are very specific. So what I can do is I can open this, for example, here in a new tab, just to really check this, and I suddenly only need 68 links endorsing my services to be eligible for a page 1 ranking, not 250 anymore. And this is already much closer. If my SaaS product is really aiming at phones or has a phone option, definitely something I would consider. Right? Let's stick with the main one. Screen recording software, 7,500. So not only screen recording, where I might have people who don't even know how to do it. On screen recording software, I have people who are looking specifically for a tool. So they know pretty much probably how this works. They know there is software, they just don't know which one to choose. Right? We have people specifically looking for Windows solutions, for example. I'm on a Mac here. If you're on a Windows computer, not every screen recorder is working for you, and vice versa. So people get very, very specific. And you can see these are just a few terms that are matches. We have 23,000 of those.
Right.
So we can really explore those further. Or something I really like is exploring questions, for example. I have a client where we started, without exaggeration, I think 11 years ago, answering client questions on their blog. So pretty much we take every question they have ever heard and put it in, convert it into a blog post. Title is the question, then the answer in an SEO optimized fashion. And they get tons and tons of leads just because we are just in the mind of their audience. We talk to their salespeople. We ask them what are the questions that are coming up all the time. And then we get those ranking. One of the questions, this is an office refurbishment company. One of the questions, how much is an office refurbishment? It's a stupid question. There's no way to give you an answer. How much is a car, right? But it's a question people ask all the time. And once they come to this article and you tell them, look, roughly per square meter, count on X amount of money, we are serving their search intent. Because now they know that they can't afford the 100 square meter office. They can only afford the 50 square meter office because the refurbishment otherwise is going to be too expensive. We help them accomplish their task and we get tons of leads out of this article. So questions, answering specific questions that you probably know by heart as a business owner, as a salesperson on your blog is already going to bring in the right people, probably at the right time. Right?
So I really like the example you just gave, and also you're talking a lot about search intent. How if we're looking through these keywords, like what we're seeing on the screen here, for example, and screen recording was what we initially started with. Mm-hmm. How do we determine what the search intent is?
Excellent question. Once Google essentially is the one who knows what the search intent is. So Google is going to figure out what people probably want to see if they make a certain search online, right? Sometimes we are going to know what the search intent is. So if someone says how to stop screen recording on Mac, we know what the search intent is. So they somehow figured out how to record the screen, maybe with QuickTime or whatever, on a Mac, and they don't know how to stop it because they don't see the controls on their screen, right? So we probably know what this can be. With screen recording, we're probably not sure because it can be a lot of things. We already see with the close variations we get here that there is a lot of different possible options. So here on Ahrefs, we can scroll down and check out what does Google rank, and we get the top 10 directly here. So for screen recording, these are the top 10. Sorry, we're in the United States here, from the market here. These are the top 10 that are ranking in the United States, okay? And now I literally go through this list. Here we have a list with more details here, and I open all those up. Okay, I open those up and go through those. If this is a keyword I really consider. I don't do this for thousands of keywords, but if this is a keyword where I really think this could be for us, I just really quickly go through those and check this out. Because ultimately, these are the articles where Google thinks users that search for screen recording are happy with the result they get. Okay, so if these are not articles, this is a how-to, for example, right? How to record on a Windows. This is not something someone who would search for a paid tool that competes with Loom, right? Here we have a Chrome plugin, a Chrome plugin that I can add for free. also doesn't really resonate with what I'm doing unless I have a Chrome plugin for my solution. Then I could possibly say, okay, this could be something we can also try to rank our Chrome plugin here. Next one, we have Apple support directly with a step-by-step instruction how to do this on the phone. We have the free screen recorder. This is like a Screencast-O-Matic. It's a very, very well-known tool for quite a while. So we see this one would be in line with what we try to achieve. Okay, so we have kind of step-by-step instructions and a few tools as a search intent, as I understand it, right? Tools plus apps.
Yeah. Okay, this is probably the first one that we've seen, which is actually an article on how to screen record.
Right. Sometimes the search intent is specifically a homepage. Right. So you search for some very generic queries with high search intent, often are triggering home pages rather than inner articles, which makes it sometimes a little bit hard to then fine-tune. Another very good candidate, for example, is the screen recording software one we had. Screen recording software, I would expect also to see quite a few home pages. Not really interesting to have more comparison software apparently. So here we have all kinds of sites that compare different screen recorder products. So the search intent seems to be a comparison rather than a specific tool. So Google thinks that if someone searches for screen recording software, they want to see a set of options.
Yeah, they're doing research versus the other one, which is more
exactly. The other one doesn't really go in any direction. So the search intent is really mixed, I would say, between some specific tools to step-by-step instructions to apps to Chrome plugins, etc. Google doesn't know. So sometimes the best guess Google has is a mix of different options. And they say if people are not on a Windows computer, they might be interested in a Chrome plugin, or they might be interested in how to do this on an iPhone, or they might be interested in this tool. And why does Google come up with these options? Because they have probably had this selection on thousands of searches, and most people seem to be happy with this. And they found something here they really liked. Whereas the other one on the screen recording software is really much, the other one on screen recording software is definitely much more focused around comparisons. And this is why no home pages are ranking, right? You do see the Screencast-O-Matic is the only tool I think I recognize right here. From the other ones are all comparisons. And then if I want to search for rank for screen recording software, I also need to produce a comparison. It's as simple as that for a start, right? If I produce a long form article about my tool and I aim to rank for screen recording software, I'm going to be losing the battle right from the start because I produce something Google doesn't want to rank because they don't think it's related to the search intent.
So that's a really fascinating point, Gert, because I think it's definitely a good idea to understand what the intent is, and the way you're doing it is looking at, well, what's using Ahrefs to look at, okay, well, here's the top 10 articles. We looked at each page individually to see what does it look like, how is it laid out, and we've determined, okay, for this particular keyword, it's going to be comparisons. So obviously, someone searching for this keyword is looking for advice around what's the best tool, perhaps, or what are the options that they have. So then, if you, one thing that's gone through my mind is, okay, well, if I produce another article that is exactly like those, right? That doesn't really. How can I do better, right? Because if I do another article which is 10 screen recording software, right? I'm now competing on things like domain authority, right? Some of these sites like TechSmith have been around for decades. Apple, well, I'm not going to beat Apple, right? So what options do I have then to actually get my content into page one for this particular keyword?
You essentially need to zoom in further, right? I would, especially in this, there are niches where you can go after the big ones because they're just not that that worked on for so many years. Screen recorders is definitely a difficult one to get in. There's just so much content, so many affiliates producing a lot of content to get screen recorders compared, pros and cons, and affiliate links, etc. you have a lot of competition here, right? So you want to probably really identify what could be a query where your product can shine, where there's not a lot of competition, and go a little bit broader. We zoomed in really quickly here, right? There is a term here, for example, that says matching, or an option that says matching terms. Sorry, I'm going to do this on the screen recording one. I'm on the screen. I've searched for screen recording. I click on matching terms, and now I get thousands of results. So 23,000 right now. Okay. So now I can start to narrow a few things down. Something we can do very quickly to get lower competition and be more specific is, for example, to work with a higher word count. We call longer terms, we call them long-term keywords, long-tail keywords, sorry. Long-tail keywords, meaning keywords that are very specific, and they usually contain multiple words. So screen recording with 2 words versus at least 3 or 4 words is going to already give me more specific searches. And now if I say, okay, I really don't want any searches around the iPhone, so I can exclude everything that contains iPhone.
Right.
I can search for global search volume, should be maybe less than 2,000. Let's go a little bit, zoom in a little bit more, and then check out what kind of queries do I get. And now on the left-hand side have like main terms. If I have an iPad app, for example, I probably can explore the iPad option and see what kind of terms around screen recording and iPad do exist. And suddenly I have a lot of queries I can target with a keyword difficulty below 30 or 40, which is very doable usually. And then I can dig deeper and say, okay, what is actually ranking for this, right? So if someone is searching for screen recording on an iPad, it has a 43. It's not easy. It has 900 search volume. I can now, sorry, just clicked somewhere by mistake. I go back to this term and click on SERPs and can check out directly here on Ahrefs what is ranking for screen recording on iPad. And then do the same thing again. Check out the top ones. Support and Apple. Obviously, this is iPad. Their brand is strong. We have seen it, which is going to be hard to beat as well. But we have this apps VA or appsva.us,
Right.
which does have a decent domain rating, but only 3 links pointing to it. So this could be a potential option. It's still probably tricky to get in here, but there might be an angle around the iPad screen recording where we actually can rank, right? So I can, for example, search for keyword difficulty specifically and say I want to target everything that's 30 or less in difficulty and see if there is anything that makes sense for me. I'm still on an iPad theme, but we already, sorry, I can just leave this and go back maybe to the recording theme. And now I'm searching for low difficulty, still decent volume, 3 words at least with no iPhone in there. And then I can see what else can I target here. It really comes down to knowing your product and how are people going to search for something where you can actually shine, or what questions are they going to ask where you can give a good answer, or compare even options, right? We have clients who compare themselves in the SaaS space with their competitors because clients are going to be put in Loom versus another brand, and they try to rank for Loom versus their brand, for example, just to make sure that they control the narrative there.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
And then go really deeper there.
Yeah, I noticed like when you were going through looking through each of the results and the pages on page 1 for screen recording, they're not long form content. It's not 2,000 word 5,000 word articles. A lot of them are just product pages. Directly, here's the product, buy here or get a trial or whatever it may be. So it's really by doing the comparison in that way, you can then work out, okay, well, what type of content needs to be here. And as you were going through, looking at different related keywords and whatnot, the other thing that was coming to my mind is, well, what are the use cases for the product, right? And for a SaaS, that's something that's worthwhile to explore. So you can look at, well, okay, why are our users actually using the tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So another angle here would be, okay, well, are they using it? They're using it for online meetings, virtual meetings. They're using it for Zoom fatigue is a big one right now. You've probably heard of the phrase, and I think I did a search for it a couple of days ago, and there's opportunities around that keyword, and talking about, well, using a tool like Loom or an alternative to Loom can actually help remove Zoom fatigue, because you're not on virtual conference calls all day.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Asynchronous communication is a big theme right now as well, right? So
Right.
you can really, okay, how can I work asynchronously? Slack has just launched a new feature here as well, where they allow you to quickly record something, so the other person, when they are around and working, they can watch it and record something back. So there's a lot of different entry points, and it's just so important, and I can't stress this enough, to get into the mind of your target audience. I mean, you've been doing much more work there in this regard than we do, but we try to really make sure that our clients just spend enough time to think about the situation their clients are on. They're in. So what is really the situation? What is, like you say, the use case or the problem they need to solve? This could be they want to have an automated webinar running and they don't know how to record the screen and upload the screen recording, for example, right? So you really want to know what their issues are and then speak to their issues. Just around the automated webinar theme, you could write 20, 30 articles just by typing this in and say, okay, what are the questions around this, right? If it's screen recording, there are a lot of questions you can answer, right? Questions are going to be, so for example, here on top, you can specifically zoom into questions. It's okay, what makes sense that I answer on my blog? Whereas, okay, if a person asks this question on Google and they come to my blog and they get an answer, does it make sense to expose these people at this stage to my brand? Because they might have a problem with an alternative software that my software solves. Simple example, Loom in the free version has a time limit. If I have an alternative product that doesn't and has other features maybe in the premium plan, this could be something where I could target searches around Loom with a time limit issue. Or is there a way to skip the time limit in the free Loom software or something like this? And then I say, no, there isn't, but you can use our tool, which doesn't have a time limit, or the time limit is much higher, for example.
Right.
So you get someone who searches actively for a solution to a problem where you have the solution. So you explain them, give them some more context, but explain on your side how you are the much better option.
So I'm looking at that one on the screen right now that says, how long does screen recording last? So that could be what you're talking about there. You can then talk about the time limits on various software, and yeah, what's the average number of? That's an interesting question for people to ask. Now, you use an example of a client that you worked with who really just looked at what are the questions that our customers and prospective customers are asking, and then went and created a bunch of contents or article related around those questions, those queries. Can you talk about the approach there? Like, do you, for example, if you were to pick one of these questions or a couple of these questions that you're seeing on the screen here, what about content size? Does Ahrefs give you some indication of how long that piece of content needs to be? Because some questions are like one question, you can answer that in one paragraph. You don't need a whole page for that.
Right, but it's really the instance or the element that's decisive is Google, right? So you said before we were seeing some short product descriptions, and that's right, but it's Google who decided that people resonate well with short descriptions there. There are other search intents where people expect 5,000 words, right? And there was a trend that still is a little bit hanging into the industry today. A few years back, you usually ranked better with a longer piece of content, which was when people really tried to stuff whatever they could into an article just to make it longer because they knew they were getting more exposure and more traffic, which is no longer the case. Google figured out that it's not the length. They were talking about deep articles or in-depth articles, etc. it's not the length, it's that the article needs to serve a purpose. An article, we very often do keyword research with one keyword in mind. Articles are going to rank for hundreds or even thousands of keywords, the same article, just because Google is going to try to match them with a lot of different articles. So if I was going to, for example, how long does screen recording last? I just open up the SERPs, the search engine result page here, and you can see for how many keywords those articles rank. This one ranks for 300 keywords. This TechSmith article ranks for 3,400 keywords.
Gotcha.
So this means that obviously we start somewhere, but then we really need to do a lot of research. And so, okay, how come that the number 5 ranking gets 4,000 in traffic and the number 3 ranking gets 400? Why? Because the 4,000 one ranks this for 3,000 different keywords. Why do they rank for 3,000 different keywords? Length and depth can be one part of it, but we also see they have a lot of backlinks. Every other article that references this one is going to give Google more context about this article. So if I have an article on SEOleverage.com talking about how to record from an iPhone and a link to this article, Google suddenly is going to make a connection between SEO and screen recording and attribute this connection to this specific article. So we can then in Ahrefs, let's continue with some practical training. In Ahrefs, we can check out those keywords and we can see what is all the same URL, and we can see where they rank. Page position 1 to 10 is a page 1 ranking, and we can see they rank for a huge amount of keywords, very, very different, but all pretty much versions of similar topics. So how to turn it on, how to turn it off, how to record an iPhone 7, iPhone 11, etc. It's all variations of the same keyword. So even if you have like very low search volumes, they still add up. And then again, the search volume is really an orientative metric that not necessarily is close to reality. So there is no tool that actually is able to measure properly the search volume. Not even Google, who should really know better, gives you exact or precise search volume data. What they do is they give you a rough idea, but until you try it yourself or you run ads on this keyword to see how many impressions you get and what impression share you have, etc., and then extrapolate the possible volume in your target market, you really don't know. Right? So you use the volume to guide yourself and say, okay, I'm not going to spend too much effort on an article where all keywords I have found have a search volume of 10. I might be ranking for it, but I might be getting 15 visitors a year. And with a 2%, 5% conversion rate, it might not be worth the effort. On the other hand, you want to probably avoid like the high volume terms, or at least know why and how you're going to target those. But an article can rank for thousands of keywords. This one ranks for 3,400 in the States, for 200 in Australia, for 200 in the UK. It's the exact same article. Let's check out this article, right? Let's see how they approach this topic. The article isn't even especially long, the article itself, right? It's a nice article.
This is almost a Q&A. Like these are just questions, but they haven't framed them as questions. They're just
step by step, right? So why record your screen? This is reasons why you should record your screen, right? Pretty much. Give feedback, to do this, to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then the real context in this case comes from all the links that come in here. So Google is not able to rank just this article alone for 3,000 keywords. But with all the other articles that refer to this one as a reference, Google has a lot of context and has 200 other articles. And from all those with the context with this article, they can then rank this article for 3,000 keywords.
So are you referring to internal linking? So
internal and external linking. Internal is an important part we control easily. External linking very often needs a link building campaign with an external link building team in place that actually reaches out to other blogs that might be relevant and gets some content published that then links to yours, etc. but also internal linking counts. So the way how you relate two articles with each other is definitely really, really important to give Google more context. So Google, I always say Google is a very smart but very dumb machine, right? So they have figured out a lot of things, but it's still a dumb machine. And the machine learning algorithm and artificial intelligence needs a lot of context, right? I know you have been speaking, you're one of the people who know the most about artificial intelligence writing. And I've heard you speak about it. I've read your content about it. And artificial intelligence can do amazing things these days. But if you don't give it any context, if you don't tell it which kind of text you want it to create, who is this for, what's the style, etc., it's just guessing, right? So artificial intelligence grows or gets better with context. And the more context you give it, the more high quality results you're going to get. I very often compare this when I do a presentation or speak on a webinar, etc., with the dots from those children's puzzles where they kind of draw a car by connecting the dot number 1 to dot number 2 and dot number 3, and they connect all the dots, and then it shows like a car, right?
Yeah.
So this is what Google does. Google needs to connect the dots. If you just give Google one article, I was just literally before this Facebook Live on a call with a client who has hundreds of pieces of content, but every single piece stands on its own. So
Right.
they uploaded this. This is what 90% of bloggers do. We hit new blog post, spend some time writing, hit publish, are happy that we have updated our blog post. And then we do next week, you do the same thing again. But we do not take the next step and think, okay, how does this article relate to all the others I've written? And can I relate all those that talk about problems with screen recorders together, link them properly together so people who read one can click through to the next one? And Google, when they index one, they know how this is related to the others. This is such a big, important topic where it's just really important that you have your content structure laid out. And so this year we're going to create 50 pieces of content. Those 50 pieces are going to go together in this structure. This one is related to this one. This one is related to this one. We map this out on a spreadsheet, right? Where we just have the hierarchy based on different columns. So we know these are the main articles. These are some more specific ones, and these are some even more specific ones. And we map this out, and then we know that when we create a piece of content, we already know how this is going to be related internally, and then we can still work on external linking.
And that's when you build what you call a content cluster, because you've looked at these are all related topics within one sort of broad main topic, I suppose.
Exactly. A content cluster means that you have like an entry piece of a pillar content usually. This pillar content like starts talking about certain subtopics, but then links to a more specific article. So if I have a pillar article that says, what is a car? And I say, okay, car is a vehicle that brings you from point A to point B. A car consists in an engine, in a chassis, in 4 wheels, and I don't know what, right? Then when you talk about the 4 wheels, you have an article about wheels, specifically addressing wheels, right? And tires, probably. So you link to this wheels article. I'm not going to have all the information on my pillar article about what is a car. I have further information on more specific articles. When I'm on the wheels article, I'm going to have a link back to this what is a car article, just because I want to put those 2 pieces of content in connection with each other. And this is what then is called a content cluster. I have an entry point, I have specific articles, and I might have one layer of more specific articles. So when I talk about wheels, I might have a specific article that then talks about the tires. And linking this together forms a logical structure, not only for Google, but also for users, because they come in wherever they want in this structure with a more specific or more generic search, and they're going to click through in order to find their answer. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that makes me think of the user experience when you're using something like YouTube, and you watch a video and then it gives you recommendations related to that specific topic. Like, it's not going to give you recommendations that are completely unrelated. And then TikTok's the same. The way the algorithm works, it looks at what pieces of content have you looked at already, and then it says, okay, the AI goes and says, okay, let's find more of similar content, and that keeps you on the app, because it's very. So if we were to think of our keywords in that way, it's kind of like, well, what are the different? And I like that. I like how you bring it back to, what's the objective? What are you trying to do here? Are you trying to, use the example of you searching for a car, or perhaps an SUV or whatever it may be. And so if you're, as a user, you're searching for these specific things, these specific phrases or keywords, then the results have to match your intent, right? Otherwise, you're just going to, unless you're just curious and you want to read, how, 10 best ways to drive an SUV, you're probably not going to jump in there. If you're going to see another article or a page which is, here's the 3 best models and the comparisons between those and the prices and all those sort of things that where your mind is at. So that's very, very great advice. Okay, so we're already. I wanted to just respect your time, and there's a lot more we can dig into here. But any sort of final thoughts around just is Ahrefs enough as a tool to use, or do you use other tools in conjunction with it to then go and produce content that speaks to your buyer intent?
But probably for Ahrefs is definitely enough, I think, for a start, to make sure that you have an idea where this is going, what kind of keywords, what kind of examples are ranking. You can go through those, make some notes, and say, okay, what do these articles have in common? What do those articles, how long should they be? Do they all talk about the same? Is this all comparison, or is this something that or are there different intents mixed, which I might be able to leverage in my article as well? Then when it comes to SEO writing, there are a couple of tools that are really coming in handy with a little bit of a learning curve, though, which we use. One is Surfer SEO, and the other one is InLinks. And what those tools do is essentially what I did years ago with a notepad and pen and paper, essentially, where I just opened up the top 20 articles that were ranking and made notes about every single article. And I said, what are they talking about? Okay, this one is talking about webinars when it comes to screen recording. Okay, let's check out the next one. Next one is talking about webinars, but also about support, technical support, right? Okay, next one is talking about webinars again, but not about technical support, but automated webinars, right? So I note down automated webinars. The tools InLinks and Surfer SEO essentially do this for you. So they analyze the top ranking sites and give you an idea what kind of themes do they talk about, how long should your article be in order to fit in. But it takes a little bit of experience and a little of a learning curve. So we use tools like Surfer or InLinks, for example, but with some guidance for our clients. So we have those tools, we pay for them, a lot of money, we pay for them, so our clients can use them when we think it makes sense. So they tell us, look, I want to rank for such and such. We do the research. We give them like a specific link from one of those tools where it's okay, now it makes sense that you check out this link, because you're going to see these keywords you really should be talking about. Apart from what you want to convey, make sure that you tackle those points in order to make sure that the piece of content you create is eligible for page 1. What we see very often is that people know a lot about their space, so they just write from their experience. And I can talk for hours about SEO. I love talking about SEO, but this doesn't mean that what I produce is going to be something that Google wants to rank. I need to make sure that I match my expertise with Google's expectation, which ultimately shows what people want to see with their search intent.
That's I think let's wrap up there. That's a key message, and let's produce content that's relevant, that makes sense for people, the people you're trying to reach. I'm just going to bring up quickly, where is it here, a website that you might recognize. So for everyone who's watching this, SEOleverage.com, that's where you can reach Gert and his team. One thing I would definitely recommend is, if you haven't done it already, book in for a quick audit, and that's a good way to get the SEO experts looking at your site and looking at where the real opportunities are to improve it. And then from there, that can lead into things like ongoing consulting and a link service. And another thing I would recommend is also grabbing or listening to the podcast. So Gert does a regular. Are they weekly, or what's your frequency on those?
Yeah, we aim for weekly. Yeah.
Yep. You've hit 55 now, so very well done. And
try our best. We're still fresh in this.
Yeah, it's still early, but that's good. You know, I like seeing you in the podcasting game. You speak very eloquently, and then also check out the book. So here you can download the Erica framework, and you can learn all about just the philosophies and the strategy that sort of underpins everything that Gert is talking about here today. Okay, Gert, thank you so much for joining us and taking us through Ahrefs. I know there's a whole lot more that you can dig into. It's a very powerful tool, but I wanted our audience to see sort of the beginner newbie level to come in and start to play with it. You can actually grab a 7-day trial of Ahrefs, or I can't remember. They're doing different trial models, but definitely a tool worth recommending. And I should actually grab Tim and bring him onto the show at some point. Has he been on yours yet?
Absolutely. No, not yet. I wasn't able to get him. He was so busy, and he was like, yeah, let's do this in the second half of the year, because he's got his planning like months ahead. Really hard to get hold of him. But I really like the tool because they're so active in the community. They have an amazing Facebook group. So if you're interested in Ahrefs, definitely recommendable to join the Facebook group. It's free. Tim Solo himself shares a lot of information there. Every new features. They have been rolling out a ton of features just this year, and they have a lot planned for next year as well. And I think it's the tool that adjusts to SEO needs the quickest from the tools available, and this is why it just became the standard tool for us and for a lot of SEO agencies and a lot of people really focusing on SEO. And
they from a content marketer perspective, they really get content marketing. Like they look at their YouTube channel. A lot of free tutorials and whatnot are on there. But also I saw Tim Solo. He's a CMO, for those who don't know, for Ahrefs. He just tweeted out that they are, for their next year, they've committed to not running PPC campaigns, and they're trying a different approach. So an experiment they're going through. So that's something to keep an eye out for.
I think what really works for them really well, it's a challenge, but I think it's the best way to do it. They just managed to create content that shows how you can use their tool to do even better. And if you manage to do this for your business, and this is what we try from office refurbishment to car dealership to everybody, make sure that we create content that just brings the brand from our clients into the center, into the focus. Make sure they understand that this brand really is going to help them, and how this is ultimately, I think, the goal that then drives the leads as well.
Yeah. So you're just coming from a focus of serving, really, like that's the intent.
Yeah. Serving and long-term serving ultimately is giving the results, but you want to make sure that on this journey you do a lot of things right for SEO.
100%. All right, good. Thank you so much, everyone else. SEOleverage.com. Go say hello and check out the Gert's podcast, and we will. I'm sure we'll have Gert back maybe at a time that he's more awake. But you've done well, mate. You did well. So
we're going to try better next time.
Which means I have to get up earlier, so that's okay. All good. Thanks a lot, my friend, and we will talk to you real soon.
Thank you so much. Always.